Hello and welcome to this presentation video. My name is Bradley Sharkey and I'll be going over CDW's Risk Advisory Services, specifically our penetration testing and cybersecurity services. Just a quick agenda for this presentation. First, I will go over the importance of cybersecurity for an organization, and then I will talk a bit about our cybersecurity services and the specifics of the different services we offer. And finally, at the end of this presentation will be two videos providing a quick demo of what our penetration testing services look like from the perspective of one of our testers. While cybersecurity may not be a primary focus for organizations, it is still one of the most important aspects of keeping your organization and its infrastructure operational. Breaches can have catastrophic implications if your organization has not implemented and tested their cybersecurity controls. Whether it's for compliance, security posture, or contractual reasons, CDW's Risk Advisory Services, aka RAS, Cybersecurity Penetration Testing Services, can help ensure your organization stays secure. If malicious actors can breach your organization's infrastructure, they could release confidential information, including customer information, resulting in legal costs. Furthermore, attackers can cause havoc within environments, bringing systems and services offline, or even deleting data. Without the appropriate cybersecurity controls in place, it's trivial for an attacker to gain access to critical production systems, such as websites, databases, or other internal applications. For example, ransomware attacks have recently caused huge issues for many organizations as they're able to spread quickly due to the lack of security within an environment, rendering data on employee workstations, servers, and databases unusable. Lastly, if your organization does get breached, it can have a huge reputational impact, as customers and other organizations may think twice before trusting your organization with their sensitive information. The cybersecurity team provides services that can help organizations improve their cybersecurity posture, and as a result, can reduce the likelihood and severity of breaches. No matter if a client has a new or existing environment or application, we can test the security controls that are in place in order to identify vulnerabilities and suggest remediation techniques. Because our team contains members with in-depth expertise and strong specialization, we provide testing for all core areas, including adversarial simulation, web application penetration testing, network penetration testing, and social engineering. With years of experience as system or network administrators, developers, and incident handlers, our team is able to provide practical and defense-in-depth solutions to meet your business needs. Our consultants have the best industry certifications for network, general, and offensive security, including OSCE, OSCP, OSWP, CISSP, CISM, GSEC, and Network Plus. One of the benefits of our team includes manual testing. While we do incorporate automated tools in our toolkit, they're only able to go so far. Because of this, our testers also perform vigorous manual tests to find the vulnerabilities that scanners will miss. Our team is 100% Canada-based and is made up of disciplined and focused expert testers, allowing us to engage directly with clients to identify and prioritize their cybersecurity risks. Our testers have an in-depth knowledge of the current security standards, allowing them to identify poor practices and controls, helping organizations meet the requirements of regulations and industry standards. Reports provided by our team prioritize critical risks, giving organizations a better understanding of their current cybersecurity posture. Being a part of the Risk Advisory Services practice, CDW's cybersecurity team can provide full-service consultancy, with the ability to assess threats and to develop and implement complex IT solutions, as well as leverage specialized expertise from different organizational areas as required. Our team has a verifiable track record helping organizations gain a better understanding of their attack surface, with vast amounts of experience performing tests for many industries, including government, financial, and critical infrastructure. For our testing services, we leverage the leading industry standards and methodologies for vulnerability assessments and penetration tests. These include the Open Web Application Security Project Testing Guide, also known as OWASP, which is a standard utilized for web application, vulnerability assessments, and penetration tests. The Penetration Testing Execution Standard, a standard utilized for general vulnerability scans, vulnerability assessment, and penetration methodology execution. Now we'll go over some of the network testing services that we offer. So first is our external network penetration tests, which are usually paired with internal tests to provide a holistic view of a client's network security. External tests provide clients with an overview of the security on their public-facing systems, giving them an idea of the security risks they pose. Testing includes scanning the client systems for vulnerabilities and using open source intelligence gathering to try and breach a client's perimeter network security. Our internal network penetration testing services allows clients to evaluate their security in a situation where an attacker has been able to obtain access to their internal network. Internal network access can be obtained by attackers in several ways, including through vulnerabilities on external systems, physical access to the facility, or by malicious internal employees. This allows clients to evaluate the effectiveness of their internal security controls that may not be as heavily tested, and provides an outlook on what an attacker could gain access to in a situation where the perimeter has been breached. Our wireless testing involves trying to gain access to wireless networks without credentials in order to determine if an attacker could obtain access. This allows clients to determine any vulnerabilities within their wireless networks and if they are implementing the current best wireless security practices. Because wireless networks are usually accessible outside a client's facility, attackers can easily attack these networks without having to enter the facility, making them an easy target. I will now move on to our application testing services. Our first application testing service is for web applications, finding vulnerabilities within websites and applications that could be abused by an attacker to perform malicious actions. Our testing gives clients an in-depth review of their web application, giving them an outlook on what vulnerabilities exist and how we're able to abuse them to perform unintended actions. Examples of commonly found vulnerabilities include the ability for users to obtain sensitive information or perform unauthorized actions. Within the context of web applications, these vulnerabilities could allow users to reveal another user's personal information or even take over another user's account. Mobile app testing follows a similar methodology to web application, where a client's apps are tested to ensure that they do not contain vulnerabilities that would allow users to perform unintended actions. Testing provides clients a review of their application to help them identify and resolve vulnerabilities that could be abused by attackers. So for our red team exercises, we offer two types of services. One is your typical red team exercise, which provides clients with a simulation of an attacker trying to compromise an organization from a black box perspective. This means that our testers are given no knowledge about a client's environment and must gather information from public intelligence sources to develop and execute attacks. These engagements are meant to simulate real-world scenarios where attackers use various techniques, including phishing, social engineering, and physical access, to gain access to a client's network. Testing is performed in a covert manner to determine if a client's security controls are effective at detecting and preventing the activities of a real-world threat actor. For adversarial simulations, the team is given an initial foothold and a specific objective. This allows clients to simulate specific scenarios compared to the wider scope of a red team engagement. Clients can utilize our team to test the effectiveness of their security controls in a real-world scenario where our testers try to remain undetected. For the beginning of this network penetration test demo, I'm going to start off with a tool called Nessus, which is an information gathering tool that is used to scan systems. This tool provides us with useful information such as software versions, configuration details, and vulnerabilities that may be present. This gives us a starting point that we can use to move forward with the rest of our testing. Before scans are run, they are configured based on the types of systems that the client has given us in order to maximize their effectiveness. Here, I'm configuring and running a scan that we will come back to later after it has completed. Now that the scan has completed, we can take a look at the results. Looking at the Vulnerabilities tab, we have a list of all the findings, as well as a breakdown of the different severities on the right. For this scan, 5% of all 40 vulnerabilities are critical, meaning there's a high chance a vulnerability on this system is exploitable. Looking at the first entry, we see that this system has a critical vulnerability for Manage Engine Desktop Central 8/9. Reading the description reveals that this vulnerability can provide us a way to execute commands on the system, meaning that we can likely gain access to the system by exploiting this. Before we try to exploit this vulnerability, we should first verify that the target system is indeed running Manage Engine. Using the URL provided by Nessus, we can see that it is running Manage Engine 9, so we can move on to the exploitation phase. Now that I have identified a vulnerability, I'm going to boot up a Kali Linux system and start a tool called Metasploit. Metasploit contains a public library of exploits for vulnerabilities, so we can search for one to exploit Manage Engine. Here, we can see that an exploit does exist for Manage Engine 9, so I'm going to configure it before running it against the target system. Now that the exploit has been configured, I can run it, giving me a shell on the system. This allows me to execute commands as if I had just opened a command prompt. Even though I can run commands, I may still be limited on what I can do. Looking at the groups my user is a part of, we can see that I'm not an administrator on this system, and therefore do not have full access. This means my next goal is to elevate my privileges and gain access to an administrator account. To do this, I will search for another exploit that I can run to elevate my privileges. Searching in Metasploit, I was able to find a privilege escalation exploit for Windows, and now I will just confirm through a simple Google search that the operating system of the target, in this case Windows Server 2008 R2, is actually vulnerable to this exploit. Here I can see that the system is vulnerable, so I will run the exploit to try and gain access to an administrator account. Once the exploit has been completed, it gives me another command prompt. Checking the user information in this new session reveals that I am now the user nt-authority/system, which is an administrator account that's found on all Windows systems. So this means I now have full control of this system. Even though I have access, I still need to obtain credentials for a user so that I can log in remotely. To do so, I will upload a file called Mimikatz, which I will then run in an attempt to gain usernames and passwords. Looking through the output, we can see that Mimikatz has found a user called sshd_server and their password. It also found another user called Vagrant, with the password of this user being the same as their username. So now that we have some credentials, we can try and use these to log in remotely. Logging in with the user Vagrant and their password, we can now see the Windows desktop. And checking their account details, we see that Vagrant is an administrator, meaning we now have full access to the system and can modify it in any way we want. For this web application testing demo, I'm going to start off with testing the ordering system on this website using a tool called Burp Suite. What Burp Suite allows us to do is log the data we are sending to the website and manipulate that data in ways that you typically can't do with a web browser. Here we can see that when I add items to my cart, Burp Suite is logging the data that I'm sending to this website. When I go to check out the products in my cart, the order total comes out to around $6,000. So I will enter some payment information and then proceed with the checkout. Now, before I click pay, I'm going to turn on the intercept function in Burp Suite, which will allow us to see the data before it is sent to the website. Within this data is the credit card number, CCV, and the data I entered. However, also within the data is the total cost for the order. This is interesting, as the website should be keeping track of the order cost, and therefore should not rely on the user to send this information. What we can try is modifying this data to see if we can change how much the order will cost. In this example, I changed the order cost from around $6,000 to $1 and then submit the order. Going to the profile page, we see that the order went through and the total cost is only $1. This means that this web application has a vulnerability within the payment system that can allow a user to change the total cost of the order. Another common vulnerability that we find in web applications is called CrossSite Scripting. This vulnerability allows us to put our own code into a website, meaning that we can add our own code to perform malicious actions. To test for this vulnerability, we look for anywhere that a user can enter text and try and insert code instead. In these examples, the code I enter creates a pop-up alert. So if an alert box pops up on screen, we know that that area is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. When I look at this website, the most obvious starting point to test for this vulnerability is the search function, as it allows a user to enter text. By entering code into the search box and clicking search, we can see that no pop-up appears on screen, meaning that this function is not vulnerable. However, just because this one section of the web application isn't vulnerable, doesn't mean that others won't be. Another area that we can test for cross-site scripting is the user sign-up page, as users can enter their own text when creating their account. This time, when I create an account, I will enter code instead of a last name. Now that I've created a new user, I need to log in and find a page that would usually display this user's last name. By going to the My Profile page, we can see that an alert popped up, meaning that the last name area, when creating a user, is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Burp Suite also comes with an automated scanner that can be ran against websites. While the scanner might not always provide accurate findings, it can provide us another way to find vulnerabilities that we might have missed during manual testing. Here, I have already run the scanner against the website, and I will now go through some of the critical issues that it has found to verify these findings. The first major issue the scanner has found is another cross-site scripting vulnerability. Here I can analyze what the scanner has done to find this issue, and at first glance, it doesn't seem like it's found an actual vulnerability. So what I'm going to do is repeat what the scanner has done manually, and after further testing, we can see that the finding is not actually valid. Looking through the rest of the issues the scanner has found, it's found another vulnerability in the login page. It says that when a user's password is sent to the website, that no encryption is used, meaning that it would be possible for another person to be able to see a user's password when they log in. Based on prior experience with this web app, I know that this issue is correct, as this app does not implement HTTPS.